I should do that after. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 5th Town of Strathmore regular council meeting. And we are starting at 6:03, and I'll do the gavel now. At this time, I would like to do our traditional monthly land acknowledgement. We honor all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We acknowledge that the ancestral and traditional lands on which we gather are land of the Blackfoot Confederacy and Treaty 7 territory, a traditional meeting ground for many Indigenous peoples, and in particular our neighbors, Siksika Nation, on whose traditional territory we work, live, and play, and on whose traditional territory we stand and where Strathmore resides. Thank you. And just something that ties into that, I would like to acknowledge the administration, CAO Scoble, your staff, Angela, Stokemy Smith, all the people who were on the committee for the Lead by Example powwow honoring Christian A. Youngman. I'd like to also thank Melody A. Youngman, as well as Hector Winnipeg for their work and efforts on this committee. I think it was an amazing event for our town. It was a wonderful way to honor Christian A. Youngman's memory. And it brought a lot of people together. It highlighted the culture of our First Nations neighbors from Siksika. And it was something that was really important for the town of Strathmore. So thank you to everyone who was involved in that. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Is there anything emergent from any of the councillors tonight? Councillor Wegener.
Well, no, I'm ready for an amended motion.
Oh, okay. A motion to amend the agenda.
Yeah.
You're adding an item then?
Yes, I'm adding it.
Okay. Is there another item that any councillors are adding or hoping to add? Anything from lead services or administration?
Thank you, Worshiping Council. Administration is requesting that Council add item 12.3 to the agenda, which is a council dialogue, confidential evaluations under VoIP section 19.2.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Wegener, I'll turn to you now.
I move that council adopt the April 5th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda as amended. Additions, 10.5.1, notice of motion, Wheatland Housing Management Body Board's Wheatland Lodge request. 12.3, council dialogue, confidential evaluations under VoIP section 19.2, and that council waive the requirement for notice under section 30.1 of the town's procedure bylaw, allowing Councillor Wagner to consider a notion of motion regarding the Wheatland Housing Management Body's Wheatland Lodge request. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there discussion on that? Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So just to be clear, so we are putting a notice of motion on. This is not intended to be a motion made tonight.
Sorry, say that again?
So this is to put a notice of motion on, not an actual motion for tonight?
This is the actual motion for tonight.
Okay, so as council is aware, so I attended an information session last week for the Wheatland Lodge, the new lodge project at the library that was hosted by the Wheatland Housing Management Board. Subsequent to that, I put together a list of questions that I sent to the spokesperson for the Wheatland Housing Management Board. So the spokesperson, Glenn Kester, has informed me that he will not be able to get those questions answered probably for a week or two. Given that this letter does not need to be sent until, or this doesn't need to be submitted until June 30th, I'm just wondering why this needs to be on the agenda tonight.
So this letter needs to be the support from all the villages, the county, the town. June the 30th is our drop dead date. That is when everything goes in. We are looking for this motion tonight for a couple of reasons. One, because, one to get the motion out there and see if it's accepted by council. The other is, we have to act as the Wheatland Housing Management Body. We have to act a lot faster than, or a lot sooner than the 15th of June, or otherwise we're going to lose, possibly lose the ability to get the lodge built, as well as collecting on specific grants.
So why can this not wait until like sometime in May?
Because if we wait till May and one of the major partners drop out, at that point, we have no plan B. And we need a plan B. The thing with this motion is it's just a letter of support going to the government at any point during this process, right up until the time they put shovels into the ground. We can step away from this project if something does not feel right when we are during this whole process. So like right now, it's a timely time is of the essence, and we need to bring this and have the vote on the letter of support. So I understand where you're coming from, Councilor Montgomery, and it is a big ask. But again, it's not all we're doing is we're asking the Wheatland, or we're mentioning to the Wheatland Housing Management Body and to the Alberta government that we support the lodge build. So again, we can back away. There's multiple drop-off points for this build.
Yeah, some of the questions that I submitted were relevant to like if the lodge is even the best route to go. You know, I've heard information saying that the province is kind of backing away from doing the lodge model. I've received questions from people in the community that I've submitted that that were good questions that, you know, I feel are relevant.
Point of information, Your Worship.
To
Sorry.
Yeah, I have a copy of Councillor Montgomery's questions. And I know that and I really understand that it's important for the discussion. And so we don't need to go over it now. I think that there are many questions that referenced by Councillor Montgomery that are specific to the operations of the existing lodge. But some of the questions that are asked here, Councillor Wagner and I can answer them when this comes up tonight. I'm prepared to answer quite a few of them. And as Councillor Wagner said, we can jump off at any point.
Yeah, I find this to be, like, I'll be honest, this is extremely uncomfortable because I've been rushed into kind of supporting capital projects in the past that has turned around to kind of bite council. So I guess I'll wait for the actual discussion then. I don't think this is a good idea to add this tonight, and I think that proper processes and protocols should be followed, and this doesn't need to be rushed. This is a major decision. It's not just a letter of support. This is a serious decision that should have kind of, I guess, time to discuss and proper processes followed. Thank you.
If I could interject, I was at the open house last night in Carsland, and a couple of times during the evening, it was stated by a board member that this is strictly the first phase. The letter of support, has been stated, is just one of the steps that allows us to qualify for more funding from the provincial government. And at any point in the process, it could be, you could walk away from it. But from what the numbers of the seniors that this town is expecting in the next 20 years, I don't foresee a change myself. I don't foresee a change in a number of people who will be interested in living in a lodge or needing to live in a lodge. So I'll probably need to have the motion read again so that I can understand it completely, but my understanding, Councillor Montgomery, is you would not be in favor then of having this notice of motion dealt with and voted on tonight?
No, it's improper to call this a notice of motion. This is an actual motion. I'm fine with a notice of motion, which is what the notice of motion actually says. It says that it will be brought forward for a vote on April 19th, which is at least a bit more acceptable. But to have it actually voted on tonight, it's
Your worship, protocol.
it's strange to say the least that something like this would have to be rushed like this, and that this is the process being followed. It's unusual, to say the least.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, worship. It's not unusual, and there are lots of times where we come in and we suspend procedure and we make motions, and there is some urgency in this, as Councillor Wagner described very capably. We are following procedure in doing this. There's nothing untoward here. People have the right to speak, they have the right to vote, but procedure has definitely been followed, and I would just like to call the question and move on, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from councillors? If I could get this motion reread, Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Worship and Council. The motion that's been made reads as follows, that Council adopt the April 5th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda as amended. Additions 10.51, notice of motion, Wheatland Housing Management Body Board's Wheatland Lodge request. 12.3, council dialogue, confidential evaluations, FOIP section 19.2. And that council waive the requirement for notice under section 30.1 of the town's procedure bylaw, allowing council to consider a notice of motion regarding the Wheatland Housing Management Body's Wheatland Lodge request.
Thank you. So if this motion is accepted, then will there be a follow-up motion concerning? Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't see that. I didn't notice that. Sorry. Okay, got it. All right. So we have that motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Okay, so that's going to come up at a later point then in our meeting? 10.5. 10.5, thank you. Okay, yes, I see it there now. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to, we have no public hearing tonight. Are there any public comments related to any of the items on tonight's agenda? Anyone phoning in or sending emails or telegrams? No, thank you. We'll move on. We have no delegations. So that brings us to item 6, consent agenda. Are there any items from the consent agenda that you would like to see removed from the consent agenda? Councillor Peterson?
I don't want to prolong this, Your Worship, but I really just think that because of the work that we're currently doing, I would like to pull 8.2, the National Hospice Palliative Care Week proclamation, because of the work that hospice has done in our community and because of the May 7th upcoming event. I'd like to take that from the agenda if council was willing and put it onto the main agenda.
On the main agenda, okay. Anything else? Then I'm looking for a motion to, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion. 7.1, the regular council meeting minutes of March 15th, 2023. 8.3, Seniors Week proclamation, and 10.2.1, Wheatland Housing Management Body Board meeting report from March 9th, 2023.
Thank you for that. And all in favor? And that motion is carried. That brings us to item 8.1, capital project, Ridge Road Sanitary. Good evening, Ethan.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Bringing to you tonight a capital budget amendment. The Ridge Road Sanitary project that we're bringing forward is a repair to an existing system that has been outstanding for a little over a year now. This item is a misalignment of a sanitary line which reduces the flow velocity of the sanitary and has caused backups, specifically in this case, fats, oils, and greases. So upstream of this location, so it's right around the Co-op gas bar on Ridge Road, just so you're aware. Upstream of here, we've got a couple of restaurants, we've got a hotel, we've got another gas bar, that sort of thing, in which those businesses can be affected if this continues to back up in the future. EPCOR has been very diligent in monitoring, flushing, proper cleaning, but it's excessive maintenance for what we should have to do for a sanitary project. We did debate about doing this project last year through our operating budget. However, doing a project of this magnitude in June really squeezes our budgets in the fall when we have actual emergencies and not just pressing issues. So when the budget was finalized here late last fall and our year end was completed, we were able to determine that there was enough funds within the sanitary reserve that we'll be able to proceed with this project if council wishes. So my ask tonight is that we use $55,000 from the sanitary capital reserve to complete this project. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ethan. Ethan, we did Eastridge Road and the infrastructure below in about 2011. Would this have been a part of that project, and was there a mistake made at that time period?
Your worship, so I'm not 100% familiar with Eastridge Road, is before my time, but I suspect that the sanitary line in this area was put in approximately around the time that the co-op gas station was built.
Okay.
Whether this was due to issues at that time or not, I cannot say for sure.
That makes me feel way better. Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
So I was just to follow that up, Director, when all that flooding that we experienced, is that part, this is why?
Your
be.
worship, through the chairs, so this one is sanitary.
Right.
The flooding issue was stormwater. So the
Was already
project,
looked after?
yeah, so the project that we did last summer, which was a new crossing of
Right.
Highway 1, the goal of that was to alleviate the
water.
flooding issues. This is to alleviate sewage backups.
So we used to have backups in there all the time, like sewage. I used to work in a facility that was at the back of what was the old lumber yard on that co-op site, and there were sewage backups all throughout that area behind the Husky, where the co-op gas bar was.
Yeah, so we understand that the sanitary line in this area is somewhat shallow for slope as it is. So it's already got low flow. So when then you put a misalignment in there, it stops everything
then the
as it goes
flooding would-
by, and then it backs up and flooding and such.
Right, yeah, so I think that goes back a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Ethan?
Need a motion?
Councillor Peterson.
I would move that council approve the use of $55,000 from the sanitary capital reserve to complete the Ridge Road sanitary project.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Ethan. That brings us to 8.2 National Hospice Palliative Care Week proclamation. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council proclaim May 7th to 13th, 2023 as National Hospice Palliative Care Week in the town of Strathmore. And if I might speak to the proclamation, Your Worship.
Okay.
The Wheatland and Area Hospice Society, partnering with Wheatland Lodge, has been on a 7-year journey to build a hospice in our community under a very unique and specific plan. And they have raised $2.5 million, set to raise 2.7 by summer, through the efforts of Wheatland County and Strathmore and all of the small towns. This is an enormous undertaking by these people and all of community coming together to build a hospice for our community. And honoring them through this proclamation, I think, is really important. Also, for our public, May the 7th is the Hike for Hospice Day, which our mayor has always supported hugely. And will be again, and of course, this year there's a fire truck pull. So I would encourage everyone to come out and support our local hospice, as well as recognizing palliative care work across our country. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And what a great team building that would be for administration and staff to get together in collegiality and pull a fire truck. So just something to throw out there for you guys.
Your Worship, I might note there are 7 people on council.
There are, but one of them is me, and and that's exactly why I didn't suggest that. All right, thank you. So moving right along, we go to item 9.1, bylaws. Boards and committees bylaw, amending bylaw number 23-12. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to speak about amending bylaw 2312, which the amendment would be to include an advisory board to support and to grant funds for FCSS and the United Way. I guess during this process, this is just to add extra transparency to the FCSS funding process and model, And this would create a board that would be responsible for administering and reviewing grants or applications and then awarding grant funding. So if there's any questions of council tonight, I'll be glad to speak to them.
Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Any questions for Mark tonight? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you for your presentation. We're looking for a motion then from council, a series of motions. Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council give first reading to bylaw number 23-12, being a bylaw to amend the boards and committees bylaw number 22-26.
Thank you. All in favor? That motion is carried. Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to further move that council give second reading to bylaw number 23-12, being a bylaw to amend the boards and committees bylaw number 22-26. Pardon me.
Thank you for that motion for second reading. And Kara, just to prove that I do listen to you, now that we have a motion for second reading on the floor, is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Peterson.
I'd move the council give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of bylaw number 23-12, being a bylaw to amend the boards and committees bylaw number 22-26.
Thank you for the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. And Councillor Langmaid.
Going for the trifecta. Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 23-12, being a bylaw to amend the boards and committees bylaw number 22-26.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship and council.
And that brings us to our next item. Jonathan, you are speaking to it. And, sorry, I just want to find the right spot. Citizenship Awards Bylaw, repealing bylaw number 23-14, and Citizenship Awards Policy number 1214. Good evening, Jonathan.
Thank you, Worship and Council. Before you, we have a bylaw and a policy. So as you might remember, in February, we did bring the Citizenship Awards program to Council for review and consideration. Following that meeting, we did review all Council's notes and comments. And administrations is requesting / recommending that what we do is we come back in the summer and kind of really redevelop that program. There were a lot of comments that were made that I'm not sure we would be able to do within the time frame to allow the awards to be dispersed in the spring, just with the school's timelines and everything as well. So what we're requesting is council repeal the current bylaw that is 14 or so years old. That's quite dated, and approve or adopt a policy that pretty much will outline which schools get the award and how much those awards would be for, just to kind of clarify expectations for everybody involved.
Questions from any of the councillors? Jonathan, this wouldn't impact the schools as far as having awards and things ready for them by the time they have their awards ceremonies?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, this is the exact same process we've been following, so there'd be no change that way.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council give first reading to bylaw number 23-14, being a bylaw to repeal the Town of Strathmore Citizenship Awards bylaw number 9-11. Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to further move that council gives second reading to bylaw number 23-14, being a bylaw to repeal the Town of Strathmore Citizenship Awards bylaw number 9-11.
Thank you. And again, now that we have a motion for second reading on the floor, is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. Oh, Councillor Langmaid.
I'll go for it. I'd like to move that council give unanimous consent to proceed with the third and final reading of bylaw number 23-14, being a bylaw to repeal the Town of Strathmore Citizenship Awards bylaw number 9-11.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And we're looking for Councillor Langmaid to clean it all up.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council adopt that council gives third and final reading to bylaw number 23-14, being a bylaw to repeal the Town of Strathmore Citizenship Awards bylaw number 9-11.
Thank you for that motion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, council.
Your worship,
Oh,
if you may,
sorry.
there's one
Thank
more.
you.
I have
Councillor
one more.
Langmaid.
Thank you. I'd like to finally further move that council adopt the Citizenship Awards Policy number 1214 as presented in attachment 1.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Jonathan. Now we move on to 10.1, questions between councillors and council statements. And I'm not seeing any, so I guess we can move on to 10.2, boards and committees. Oh, that's in the consent agenda, sorry, thank you. I thought I would, questions and answer period 10.3. CAO Scoble, since this is out in the public on Facebook, and I've seen a few questions, do you have any status on the Strathpoint project on the Trans-Canada and Lakeshore Boulevard, Lakeside Boulevard? Have we heard anything?
Through the chair, I understand it's still moving along, but I'll defer to Mr. Dugdale here to, I think
Okay,
he's got a
thank
little
you.
more info.
I was just thinking maybe we could clear up any rumors that are out.
Sure. Through the chair, we were in contact with the developer a couple of weeks back, planning staff, and our understanding is that once weather is improving, which hopefully it is now, they will get back underway on site. So that's what they've told us. So.
Perfect. Again, I'm reassured. Thank you. Any other questions and answers? Anything for CAO Scoble as far as your day-to-day lives? Seeing none. 10.4, administrative inquiries. Do we have any tonight, Jonathan or Kara? No? Okay. And that brings us to 10.5, 10.5.1, notice of motion, Wheatland Housing Management Board, Body Boards, Wheatland Lodge request.
Okay.
Councillor Wagner.
Thank you. Whereas the town of Strathmore's 2022 to 2025 strategic plan has identified affordable living as a priority, and whereas council is desirous of Strathmore being an affordable community for residents and businesses, enabling access to housing services and supports, and whereas Wheatland Lodge provides needed accommodations for seniors in our community, and whereas Wheatland Lodge, a Wheatland Housing Management Body, is proposing the development of a 120-unit Wheatland Lodge for a total cost development of $52,739,184. And where Wheatland Housing Management Body will be applying for the Province Partnership Program grant for the amount of $7,140,000. And whereas Wheatland Housing Management Body is requesting a one-time capital requisition from the following municipalities. Wheatland County for the amount of $3,985 or $985,914. Town of Strathmore for the amount of $1,966,625. Village of Rockyford, $30,224. Village of Standard for the amount of $45,463, and the Village of Hazard for the amount of $16,571. And whereas the town of Strathmore's one-time capital requisition will include the donation of 4.7 acres of undeveloped property east of Kinsman Lake with an estimated value of $1.4 million. And whereas the proposed development will be subject to the town's current engineering guidelines and regulations contained within the town's land use bylaw. And whereas council understands that the Wheatland Housing Management Body operating requisition will not increase greater than the Calgary's annual CPI index over the next year over year. Notice is hereby given that the following motion be brought for consideration at the at tonight's regular council meeting, that council direct administration to obtain a minimum of 2, preferably 3, updated appraisals on the 4.7 acres of undeveloped land east of Kinsman Lake that was donated to the Wheatland Housing Management Body, conditional upon the construction of the new Wheatland Lodge Seniors Facility, with funding coming from the Financial Stabilization Reserve. and that council commit to the development of the new 120-unit Wheatland Lodge contingent on the capital requisition not exceeding $566,625, excepting for any increase resulting from a lower land value and the land appraised than the current estimated land value of $1.4 million. All parties agreeing on the valuation of the land being donated to the town. The operating requisition not increasing more than the Calgary CPI index year over year. Wheatland Housing Management Body lobbying the province for support and resources for the proposed development. Wheatland Housing Management Body receiving the province partnership grant in the amount of $7,140,000. For the proposed development receiving full regional support in the amounts provided for the one-time capital requisition, and that council authorize the mayor to sign the attached letters to Canada Housing Mortgage Company and the Government of Alberta regarding the development of the 120-unit Wheatland Lodge.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson.
I just have a question to administration for my elucidation, and that is in the operating requisition not increasing more than the Calgary CPI index. Can you speak to that a little bit? I'll edit my question. I'll tell you why beforehand. And that, so requisitions at Wheatland Housing have always maintained a standardized, they've been within a parameter, and it's been very, very predictable. This is the first year that we've seen, because of increased food costs and things like that that are higher. Could this possibly impact that? Because I don't know what that represents, what a CPI index of 1% indicates, or the annual CPI index.
Through the chair, using the Consumer Price Index that is published by Canada's statistics, we want to protect our community to ensure that we're not going over the average, and it's just it's a conditionary to ensure that we are protected. I don't believe that the Housing Board has ever gone over the inflationary rate, but due to some of the large inflation that we've seen, we don't want to see an increase of 30% in 1 year.
So one of the things that I've already brought to this council and spoke about in this room is that because of food costs, increased supply chain costs in the new lodge, we're looking at a 12% increase this year overall.
That was not reflected in the 2023
No, it isn't
requisition.
reflected in this requisition. But remember, it's always a year
Yes.
behind, right?
Yes, and we would be looking at that
Okay.
to ensure
That's
that
wonderful. Yeah,
there's more protection for us as a
Yeah,
community.
my ignorance. Thank you.
It's not ignorance, it's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Kara?
If I can just build on what Ms. Ashbacker said, I think part of what we're trying to also do is when we spoke with the consultant, he gave us the assurances, right, around the requisition not increasing. So again, like she said, we really want to make sure that that protection is built in for council, right? Should you need, we're not anticipating needing an off-ramp, so to speak, but should you need it, it's there, right?
He
to
said it
protect the
was a
town.
wonderful motion. He was filled with encouragement for the due diligence around it, and I'm very appreciative.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Are you opposed? I can't vote on it. I wasn't here for the motion. Oh, okay. So, Jonathan, just for clarification, if Councillor Montgomery was away for the motion, he cannot vote on it, so we have it passed as a...
We can read the motion again, Your Worship.
I would recommend, Your Worship, that maybe to restate the motion might be the quickest thing, the easiest thing. I'm just
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, Your Worship. I would recommend just restating the motion just for all councillors.
Okay. So, Councillor Montgomery? Are you wanting to restate it?
Oh, no, you guys can proceed with the vote.
Just want to make sure we're following the exact procedure.
Yeah.
Because it's in the package.
And that's what I want to make sure of too.
Well, it's the MGA that says that you can't vote on a motion unless you were here for the motion, so I'm just following.
Kara?
I think we just want to make sure that everybody's clear on what's on the table, so everybody feels comfortable.
Should we
Because there's
take a quick
also,
recess?
if you're present and, not understanding what's going on, we don't want to make anybody on council uncomfortable. So I agree with John that let's restate it, just
Okay.
to make sure that we're all clear before you make the vote.
Does it need to be restated by the person who made the motion?
Sorry, what? You guys, like I said, you guys have voted, so if there's a problem, but if you guys really want to force the issue, I guess you can. But I'm not going to be a part of it, so.
Are you leaving now from the council?
No.
No, okay.
Well, we have to recall the vote.
Yeah, you can look up the procedure if you like. I'm not sure you're going to find anything.
Your worship, sorry to interrupt, but maybe we could take a quick recess just to support council.
Okay, so we need a motion for a quick recess.
I will so move, your worship, to take a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Opposed? Oh. Okay, so we're in a quick recess.